Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
It's a bit of an affront when I'm just trying to keep myself out of hospital.
Pushed to the brink. One woman's story about how BC's healthcare crisis could be threatening her life.
If I get anything out of this, it's never been about money. It's always been about doing what's right.
Plus, the Vancouver Canucks hit with a human rights complaint as a former employee claims discrimination.
We would like to actually make them comfortable, and that's the whole point of giving them culturally specific food.
And a look at the changing needs of the food bank, why there's more strain than ever before.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. We begin tonight with BC's healthcare crisis and a story about how shortages and backlogs have left one Vancouver Island woman in a potentially life-threatening situation. Sandra McCulloch's treatment for diabetes requires a special authority designation given to certain drugs and devices not generally covered by the province. Now, she recently tried to renew the designation, but as Balpuria explains, she hit a snag because she doesn't have a family doctor.
Let's go, come on.
Daily routines for Sandra McCulloch include keeping a very close eye on her health. 18 years ago, the former journalist was diagnosed with diabetes. In subsequent years, managing her condition has become easier.
It is life-changing.
Dexcom is a continuous glucose monitor that transmits data to smartphones.
There is a small fiber in the back that goes into the interstitial tissues, which is just under the fat layer. It reads your glucose every 5 minutes.
Initially, McCulloch used an inheritance to help pay for the $300 a month treatment. In retirement, covering the cost has become difficult. Last spring, McCulloch's family doctor got her special authority coverage with BC Pharmacare. She was shocked when she last went to the pharmacy for more sensors.
It was going to cost $300. And I said, how can that be? It's on prescription. And they had to look on the computer and they said, oh, the special authority is expired.
McCulloch's doctor has retired, so no one alerted her to the upcoming expiry date, not even BC Pharmacare.
It's a bit of an affront when I'm just trying to keep myself out of hospital.
And alive.
And alive.
Last Wednesday, McCulloch awoke to a life-threatening emergency. While sleeping, her glucose levels plunged to a dangerous low.
The Dexcom would have had a sensor go off at 4 that would have woken me up to go get some sugar in me, so I would have headed off the hypoglycemia. Low glucose can kill you pretty quickly.
Health officials say the province is working on a way to communicate directly with patients without doctors, as well as other steps.
Made significant changes around pharmacists, around the new renewal of drugs, obviously urgent and primary care centers, primary care networks, all the work that's being done, and our recent deal with doctors, all is designed to address that circumstance.
Health Minister Adrian Dix has offered to look at McCulloch's case. She's not impressed.
There's a lot of people in my position. What's he going to do for everybody? How do you address this problem rather than putting out the one fire that's coming on across your desk one day? That's what annoys me.
For now, McCulloch relies on a manual system which has already failed her once to monitor sugar levels. Approval of her new special authority, it's estimated, will take at least 6 weeks. Balpuria, CBC News, Vancouver.
The BC government, meanwhile, is streamlining its process for bringing in more internationally trained doctors in order to address ongoing staff shortages. But as Michelle Gussoub reports, there are concerns bureaucratic delays could slow down the process and may come too late for some patients.
I decided that this is not the path I want to take. However, I would love to advocate.
Honye Bazagari was a practicing doctor in Iran until she moved to Vancouver 7 years ago. The complexity of navigating BC's medical licensing system inspired a career change to the tech industry. One less doctor in a province where 1 million people don't have one.
I think when we talk about crisis, we need to take bold actions, yet they need to be practical.
Premier David Eby now promising it will soon be much easier for doctors trained abroad to work here in BC.
That's why we're taking action to get more internationally trained doctors off the sidelines and into clinics where they're so desperately needed.
Over the next 2 years, the province will be tripling the number of seats in the Practice Ready Assessment Program. That's BC's system that licenses doctors from abroad to work here. The number of spots will increase from 32 to 96. The program has only assessed an average of 26 people per year since it launched in 2015. Bazagari says she worries the current requirements will limit the pool of applicants to the program.
There is a regulation which says a physician should have passed 24 months of internship or residency for family physician. However, it's not the case in Saskatchewan or Newfoundland. And by what we have in British Columbia, so many foreign trained medical doctors do not sit in this category, which means that they do not have this criteria.
Among the other changes, international medical graduates will soon be able to work as associate physicians. They'll be licensed to care for patients under the supervision of an attending physician. Doctors trained in the U.S. for at least 3 years will also be able to work in community settings, including urgent care centres and family practices. All changes the province hopes will help the British Columbians currently going without a family doctor. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
And sticking with healthcare now, more than 2 years after it was first announced, there's new funding and the dean of SFU's new medical school has been named.
It's a very exciting time for SFU and for British Columbians looking at their first new medical school, the first new medical school in Western Canada in 50 years.
$4.9 million will be provided to cover accreditation, planning, engagement, and staffing. Dr. Roger Strasser, the former founding dean and CEO of the Northern Ontario School of Medicine, has been appointed interim dean. Well, the Vancouver Canucks have been hit with a human rights complaint. Former employee Rachel Dory is claiming the team's assistant manager made discriminatory comments about her mental health, and the organization later fired her for what she calls unreasonable and flimsy reasons. Our Dan Burrett is live with us tonight and has been tracking this story. Dan, walk us through Dory's claim.
The Canucks hired Dory as an analyst in January, Anita. Her complaint says she had PTSD linked to a heart condition and lived with depression, which she shared during that interview process. Now, the complaint says Dory never got any complaints about her job performance and was later promoted. In September, Canucks coach Bruce Boudreau spoke highly of her at a charity event, and the province newspaper published a story about it. Dory then reposted that on her Instagram account. The complaint claims Assistant General Manager Emily Castonguay then called Dory into her office the next day, concerned she'd spoken with the media. Dory said she told her she only politely reacted after a reporter, a friend, texted her about the coach's comments. The complaint alleges Castonguay responded by saying, quote, "You're not important enough to be cared about," and, quote, "No one in the media is your friend," and "I don't know if you have what it takes to do the job mentally." Dory's claim says she was fired days later. Her claim argues her sex and physical and mental disabilities did play a role in her firing, and she says she expected Castonguay would have been supportive of her as another woman who had worked hard to break into a male-dominated industry like hockey.
There have been so many instances of poor hockey culture in the last couple of years that have come out, and to me, you can't move forward and create a better environment that's more welcoming to people who aren't white men if you don't have the courage to speak up and speak out against this kind of behavior.
Dory's complaint asks the tribunal to order the Canucks to compensate her and address what she claims is discrimination, Anita.
So, Dan, what is Castonguay saying about this complaint?
Both she and the Canucks deny the claims, Anita. In a statement, Castonguay says Dory's allegations are untrue. Quote, "I take a lot of pride in my work with the Vancouver Canucks, being a good leader, a person of high moral character, and always respecting and putting my co-workers first. At no time was Miss Dory treated differently due to gender, a mental disability, or a physical condition." For their part, the Canucks organization says they provided Ms. Dory with all the necessary resources, support, and opportunities to succeed in her role. It says we acted in good faith and abided by our contractual obligations both during and after she was with the team. We have much more on this story on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Anita.
Dan Burrett reporting live tonight. Thank you. And BC's Human Rights Commissioner is also calling for an end to school liaison officers across the province. The commissioner is recommending elimination of the programs unless districts can demonstrate an evidence-based need for them. She says Indigenous, Black, and other marginalized students, as well as their parents and communities, have raised significant concerns about the harm caused by having police in schools. Those comments come as Vancouver's school board is set to vote tonight on putting police back in schools after new mayor Ken Sim campaigned on the promise.
We have evidence emerging from the U.S. That shows the harm that's caused by these programs, that in fact the programs have the opposite of their intended effect by making students feel less safe. We just don't have good enough reason to continue them without building the evidence base to show that they're actually useful or that they're not. There's ways to prevent that harm.
5 of the 9 elected trustees campaigned on the promise to bring back police officers into schools. Well, tonight, Surrey Council is once again debating a motion about policing there. This time, it's about another step in the city's application to the province to get rid of the independent police force that it's been building up. Justin McElroy has a quick look now on how we got here.
This week, Surrey will be having a vote on the future of its police force. Again, here's what you need to know. So in 2018 and 2019, Council did a bunch of votes to ditch the RCMP and create their new independent police force. And over the last 3 years, they've started to put that force in place. It's like a quarter of the way completed now. But then there was an election, and the old mayor lost by about 1,000 votes to Brenda Locke, who promised to stop the transition and keep the RCMP. Now she has the votes on Council to get anything she wants passed. But there are 2 big questions. The first is what the cost would be. Now, the Surrey Police Force says it would be about $190 million to stop the transition with all the severances and sunk costs in place. The city hasn't put forward their own estimates yet, though, which brings us to question number 2, whether the province will agree to do what Council wants. If the province thinks the plan is too half-baked or has too many questions, they could say no. But we won't know that until 2023, more than 4 years into this saga.
Well, the public inquest into the death of Cree teen Trayvon Desjardins has now started more than 2 years after he died. Desjardins was found dead in his bedroom closet at an Abbotsford group home in September of 2020, 4 days after he was reported missing. The BC Coroner Service called for the inquest after the 17-year-old's family demanded answers about his death. Desjardins' mother testified today, explaining that her son told her he was often hungry and lacked clean linen and bedding during his time at the home. Well, food banks across the country are feeling the strain as prices soar and more people need help. The Surrey Food Bank is feeling that pinch in one place in particular, halal food products. And as Peggy Lamb shows us, filling the pantries of its growing Muslim client base is getting harder and harder.
It's a hot item, one that the Surrey Food Bank is struggling to keep in stock, bags of halal beef. The organization says most of its clients are refugees who practice Islam, so this food moves fast.
We would like to give them the food that they want rather than just taking what they don't want, So we would like to actually make them comfortable, and that's the whole point of giving them culturally specific food.
Refugee Amir Abir Dakar visits the food bank weekly, a trend that started 2 years ago after he arrived in Canada from Syria. We're not showing his face as he fears stigma as a food bank user.
We used to, about a year ago, used to come to the food bank, maybe half the food is not suitable for us. But right now, about 95% of the food is very good for us.
Since then, the Surrey Food Bank has upped its game, getting more and more halal food, but it's struggling to keep up with demand. It buys 3,000 units of blessed meat per month at full price, but says that's not enough for 10,000 Muslim families. On days when they run out, clients are referred to the Muslim Food Bank, their warehouse 10 kilometers away. Here, they only give out halal foods.
So we would have a can and we would just make sure that it's all vegetarian, there's no pork in it, there's no ground beef.
CEO Azim Daya says the number of people they serve is growing. Since June of this year, they're seeing 1,000 more people come each month. Daya says they secure their halal foods, especially meat, through donations and discounts from big box stores, something the Surrey Food Bank is trying to do too.
Food is usually allows people to build a good relationship, and once we build relationship, then we can help them in all these different aspects for them to progress towards self-reliance.
Aspects like employment and education, which he says can't happen until people are properly fed. Peggy Lam, CBC News, Vancouver.
A man originally from Prince George was found dead in the cold in New Brunswick last week. Luke Landry was released from jail in Moncton just hours before with nowhere to sleep and no winter clothes. Frontline workers were unable to find him a shelter bed, and his mother, who is also from BC, is calling for action.
Everything that he ever did wrong was related to drugs. My first information that came through the media was saying homeless man dead in front of a hall. And I'm going like, that's my baby, you know? And he wasn't always homeless. This was, like I say, he just got out of jail that day. He never even got his feet on the ground right. They gave him nothing. Something has to change, and has to change fast, because we're going into winter. This is only going to get worse as the winter goes on.
For more on that story, you can go to our website, cbc.ca. Meanwhile, with those winter temperatures settling in across our province, the city of Vancouver is opening 3 warming centers starting tonight. As a life-saving measure, they'll be open on any night when temperatures drop to -5 degrees Celsius or below. These are in addition to temporary winter shelters, which will be open every night until March, and extreme weather response shelters, which open when the temperature feels like 0 degrees Celsius or below. And these cold temperatures have drivers across Metro Vancouver responding with hopes of breaking out the winter tires. Crowds today, if you can believe it, at a few tire locations with lineups wrapped around multiple blocks. Some drivers reported waiting up to 3 hours to get their tires changed. While winter tires are not required in the Lower Mainland, anyone heading north to Whistler or over the mountain passes is required to be equipped as per provincial rules. Johanna Wagstaff is off tonight. We're joined by Amy Bell. You know, Amy, I guess that is a good thing because I don't know if you've seen drivers in this province when it snows.
Not always that great. Tends to be an acquired skill that we don't often get to practice. But yeah, it's best to just stay safe and stay off the roads. And that's really what we're recommending sort of tomorrow afternoon into the evening. That's when we're going to see the snow really making its impact. Well, it'll be a bit earlier, in fact, on Vancouver Island. But for us here in the Lower Mainland, tomorrow's afternoon commute could certainly be dicey. Taking a look at the current temperatures, it is a chilly one out there. We still have this air, this outflow down from the interior, so very cold temperatures for the next couple of days. Just 1 degree in Nanaimo, -1 at the airport, 0 in Pitt Meadows, and -1 in Abbotsford. We'll see things dropping down significantly overnight. And then tomorrow morning, with the wind chill, it will feel a bit closer to -9. So do use caution if you're heading out early. Now, it is going to get interesting. We'll start off with some sunshine tomorrow, and then we'll head into just a few flurries in the afternoon. It's into the later afternoon and evening, we really see that ramping up, and we could see anywhere from 10 to 20 centimeters. Just depends where you are. It is definitely going to get messy, though, on Wednesday. So we'll start off with the snow, but then as the temperature rises, we will see that wintry mix transitioning over to rain, and there is a chance of freezing rain, especially out in the Fraser Valley. So that's when things could get dicey once again. Thursday, we warm up a little bit. We're looking at some showers, but overnight, we could see some more flurries and some more snow in the forecast for Friday.
All right, Amy, thank you.
You're welcome.
And of course, the temperature is much different where the World Cup is happening right now. Sunday's historic goal by Canada's men's soccer team is softening the blow to the team's elimination from that World Cup, but there is still a chance to leave Qatar on a winning note. As Thomas Dagla reports, the squad has 1 game left to play before they wrap up the FIFA tournament.
Training ahead of their Thursday match against Morocco, and after that big defeat to Croatia yesterday, the squad certainly looked relaxed. Alistair Johnston and Ismail Kone speaking on behalf of the team, saying that that first ever goal by Alphonso Davies for Team Canada at the Men's World Cup, it sort of changed something for them mentally. He said that going to get those first points in the standings, beating Morocco on Thursday, would help them break down mental barriers for the future. They talked about how they have learned in the past 2 matches against European powerhouses Belgium and Croatia. Ismail Kone said they owe it to the thousands of Canadians who've traveled here to Qatar and all the fans who've supported them through the ups and downs through many years to go and get that win on Thursday.
We're very together as a group. We've still felt that the whole country's behind us, which is pretty special. Of course, deep down, we all wanted to go out there and get 9 points, move on from the group, and potentially lift the World Cup at the end. But for a team who's only in their second World Cup, of course, that was always going to be a long shot.
Some members of the Canadian media here in Qatar complained to Soccer Canada that the team's biggest star, the man who just scored the biggest goal in Canadian men's soccer history, Alphonso Davies, was not made available to speak to reporters. Canada's Soccer Association has replied that indeed Alphonso Davies has spoken. He's done interviews with predominantly the rights holder broadcasters. These are the networks that are officially broadcasting, who pay for the broadcast rights of the tournament, but he has not come to speak to the media after that big goal yesterday. Thomas Dagg with CBC News, Al Qatar.
Many folks here are watching China closely right now as the government there faces twin dilemmas, a surge in COVID and a new surge of protest. As Sasha Petrusik explains, there is clear public anger with Beijing's pandemic response, but it doesn't stop there.
In Beijing, loud demands for an end to this horror. China's zero COVID policy and the fences trapping them for almost 3 years. An anger that's fueling demonstrations across the country. In Wuhan and Chengdu, they shout for freedom of speech. In Shanghai, a woman named Kate
on the PCR and dictatorship
daringly challenges the communist dictatorship of leader Xi Jinping. Many have been arrested or beaten up, but overall, police response has been uncertain. The only official statement so far rejects that widespread protests are even happening, blaming forces with ulterior motives. Facing record infections, Beijing does not have an easy way out. Keeping zero COVID means instability and more trouble for China's struggling economy. But studies say easing restrictions now could bring more than 1 million deaths, the result of a weak vaccination program. With its construction of huge quarantine centers in the past months, China may be preparing for a worst-case scenario.
The exit is difficult because if they give in to the public to save the regime or the legitimacy, right, they're going to have a big number of cases and of death.
The problem is worsened by Xi's one-man rule and a determination to keep zero COVID.
We will probably see more arrests and some violence in the coming days. But Xi Jinping's third term and beyond will be so much harder to govern.
That's likely to mean more restrictions, not the loosening so many demand. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
It's a new tech world that faces some serious growing pains. Coming up, from fraud to energy overuse, a look at those big issues for Metaverse and Web3. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. A New Brunswick mother is trying to spread awareness about autism through humor. Crystal Venader's 7-year-old son, Stalin, is nonverbal, so she started a blog to share the highs and lows of his diagnosis with autism before discovering his love for telling jokes.
What do you call a bear with no teeth?
What?
A gummy bear.
Good job, buddy. Nice telling jokes.
Stalin received his official diagnosis when he was 21 months old, and he was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Stalin still has a lot of the challenges. He's considered nonverbal or non-speaking, but he uses an iPad with special software to communicate, and he's becoming more proficient each day. He's in grade 1, he loves school, loves people, and he loves to tell jokes. He's always been kind of a trickster. He would do things in his therapies, like if you had put out some colors and you said, what color is blue? And blue's his favorite color, so we knew he would know that. But he would pick pink and laugh really hard. So when we got his device and we were looking at ways to incorporate it into our daily lifestyle, I thought, why not jokes or comedy? Because he is a trickster and he would enjoy that. And so that's kind of become his Sunday thing, Stalin's joke of the week. And we have people from all over the world who tune in to see what he's going to tell. Well, we decided that we would put out a joke book, a compilation of his favorite jokes. Jokes Are for Everyone is his book. I really did it as a project to empower him. So he was involved with every aspect of the book. All the jokes that are in here are jokes that he's told with his device. He picked the color blue because that's his favorite color. He picked this picture of him. He was the decision maker and made all the important decisions. I did it so that he would know and other people would know that people who are autistic can do anything. Our goal is to educate people about autism and raise awareness about autism. My hope is that people will realize that a life lived differently is not a life less lived. And we have dreams and hopes for him, and he's just an amazing person. And I hope that other people who are going through the diagnosis realize that, you know, your child is the same person both before they were diagnosed as they were after. It is not a diagnosis to be feared, but a person to be accepted and loved.
The metaverse and Web3, well, they present a new set of societal challenges. Scams, fraud, monopolization, energy use, and privacy are all issues facing the world of new tech. So are the people creating these new technologies thinking about this at all? Well, we asked them. Take a look.
With all the exciting things happening, there's also a lot of really scary things happening in the space. Scams, a lot of people trying to take advantage of people who are new to crypto and don't understand it.
The blockchain is what we call kind of a pseudo-anonymous type of network. So you get a lot of projects that the founders of the projects decide to remain anonymous, but a lot of times they're doing that so that they can run away with all your money.
So I was introduced to Fame Ladies Squad as a potential collector. It was the first all-female generative avatar collection on the Ethereum blockchain. And that was, at the time, it was a really big deal. There was a very clear lack of diversity and representation in this space. Project sold out immediately. The founders made about $1.5 million US at the time. But about a month or so later, it came to light that the founders were imposters. So they were not, in fact, women behind the project, but they were men pretending to be women. It was this big deal. It was this big scandal. There were blockchain sleuths that really uncovered this truth by connecting them to other projects where they were claiming to be different types of people. The values of the project plummeted immediately, and it felt like an experience that could really discourage women from wanting to explore the space.
Somewhere around 20% of people in the NFT space are women. So that's a huge discrepancy, and it was very discouraging to me. And there was a minute when I thought, what is the point? If this isn't a safe space for women or an equitable space for non-cis men to thrive and find success, then why am I here? And I was talking about that to a friend, and he said that it's important for me to stay in the space in order to push for change, that nothing is going to happen if all of the women decide that it's just not for them. There has to be somebody who is there to make a difference and create a safe space for women, people of color, the queer communities, etc.
To make a long story short, I ended up becoming the smart contract owner for the entire project. I was not planning on this. I just happened to be one of the more engaged community members. When everything unfolded, I decided to make a Discord community for the people who were part of that community to come together in a more productive way. And with that, we're looking to empower women in Web3, let them understand what the possibilities are, and not just with these NFT collectibles, but what are smart contracts? What are the use cases? How might they be thought leaders in their own industry and start thinking about what this technology might mean for them, thinking about the metaverse, thinking about crypto. We really want to make sure women aren't left behind in all of this stuff, and that they can walk into their boardrooms or their organizations and really drive innovation.
What is the climate impact of blockchain? Is Bitcoin going to boil the ocean? Are NFTs destroying the universe? The reason why people understand crypto to have a large carbon footprint, and why as an industry it does, is because the proof of work algorithm that was really majorly implemented in Bitcoin and is also used in Ethereum uses a lot of electricity by design. It's a feature, not a bug. It's on purpose. And that electricity spend is fundamental in securing that blockchain, making sure nobody can disrupt it.
As the blockchain gets larger and more popular and 1 billion people start to buy NFTs and create crypto wallets, that mining cost, that electricity will go up. So it's important that there are projects out there that are moving towards what we call proof of stake. And that removes high-powered computers solving math problems. Instead, it leverages people owning cryptocurrency in their wallet and having them as a node be able to check the ledger. And if they check it wrong, then they lose the crypto that's in their wallet on a very basic form.
People say this is like a 99 or a 99.99% reduction in energy usage from proof of work to proof of stake. So along with the transition of Ethereum to proof of stake later this year, there's a whole raft of other really neat blockchains springing up. They are very low carbon already. Some of them are even doing their carbon footprint and offsetting the rest. I myself am extremely excited about the tools that we can build on the blockchain to help proactively get carbon out of the atmosphere and beat climate change. I've been developing carbon offset projects for the last 17 years. And so exploring through that space, I realized that amazing use case for blockchain vis-a-vis climate was to actually put the Paris Agreement carbon markets on the blockchain, connect the national carbon accounts of all of the world, and enable the issuance and exchange of Paris Agreement carbon credits. Well, I'm just so passionate about it, right? Like I eat and breathe it, so.
There is a risk that technology is going to drive us into a much more boxed world where everything within that world is thrown at us through algorithms and through tracking and through other forms of technology spying on us of sorts. I think everybody that's involved in these kind of technologies where there's no real actually set future for them has an obligation to try and do their best to make sure we go down a path that is for the good of humanity.
I think decentralizing the metaverse is crucial. I think that there shouldn't be one single company like Facebook or Meta sitting at the center of it.
If someone's gonna build a metaverse and that thing isn't open, that thing is a closed platform that somebody like Meta owns or Google or Apple owns, that doesn't sound like paradise. That sounds like dystopia to me. And so I think that the only way that a metaverse will exist that I will want to be a part of is if it is somehow deeply embedded in a decentralized technology such that I do have true ownership over the things in that world.
What we see is that there's a lot of opportunity for people, organizations, voices to have an outsized influence on the evolution of this technology. Many of these large tech organizations right now capture a lot of biometric data and actually build sample models of who they think you are, right, and how they think that you're going to react. And so having organizations where privacy is respected, unnecessary data isn't collected, security and privacy centric in the business models is really important to be developing now. And now is exactly the time when we need to be having the realistic conversations around like what actually matters and how do we actually build something that is healthy and not exploitive.
After the break, CBC News is on the ground in Somalia, where millions of lives are in danger. What a 5-year drought has done to food security in the African nation.
You can tell right away we've lost it. Not too many suntans in this crowd, and not too many smiles either. Everybody looks grim. This is only supposed to happen in places like Ottawa, Winnipeg, or Edmonton. You can tell by some of the get-ups that something has happened. The Anti-Fur League has gone into hiding, and anything goes. The Gucci wearers and black patent crowd seem to have been replaced by the Order of the Mukluk and any other kind of footwear that might be warm, if not wonderful. For the first time in years, the guy who sells scarves, gloves, and earmuffs won't have to worry about bankruptcy. And there's another bright side to this little tome. Certain residents of Stanley Park think they've died and gone to heaven. The otters could hardly be restrained. That wonderful feeling of ice underfoot and frigid water below was just what the doctor ordered. No shrinking violets in this crowd, and the last one in is a rotten egg. Now, if you're a penguin, you never thought it would happen in this part of the country. Vancouver is the last place in the world a penguin wants to live. But this is delightful. For the occasion, the head penguin got all the other tuxedo wearers together for an impromptu water ballet. Move over, Baryshnikov. The natives of the Kids Animal Zoo were less impressed. They said they liked it, but there seemed to be a lack of conviction. Only the turkey was excited, and you would be too if you escaped the American Thanksgiving. Maybe it just depends on your point of view.
Really? You've got to know how to cope with the cold. These people who walk around looking like they're freezing to death, not knowing what to wear, not knowing how to go about it, I don't have any sympathy for them. I mean, after all, when it gets this cold, you have to dress for it. After that, everything's okay. Bob Gillingham, CBC News.
Poverty and hunger are a growing concern worldwide, and in Somalia, 7 million people are living with food insecurity. CBC News is on the ground there this week, taking a closer look at the food crisis. Tonight, Margaret Evans is showing us their struggle to survive.
Somalia is currently in the midst of missing its 5th rainy season in a row. It is a drought, people here say, the likes of which haven't been seen in 40 years. And it's driving vast numbers of people off their land, leaving dead crops behind and dead animals too. They're making their way to places like this, a town called Dolo. This is a displaced people's camp on the edge of the town, which is right up against the border with Ethiopia. And they're making big journeys to get here. At the beginning of this year, there were only 2 camps for the displaced around this town. Now there are 5. This is one where people are arriving still every day. When they get here, they don't have very much, and they'll head for trees where they can hang tarps and blankets they have to try to form some kind of shelter. One family told us, in fact, this family over here behind me, that they walked 6 days to get here. They put their kids in a cart pulled by a donkey. The adults walked. Another family told me that they walked the 70 kilometers, everybody, adults and children alike, after the donkey pulling their cart died. They've come here because they want help. They need food, they need water, but they also desperately need medical care for their children, falling prey to the diseases which are looking for the weak and for the hungry. There are already more than 1.2 million children under the age of 5 in Somalia suffering from acute malnutrition. There are aid agencies on the ground, but they say that the need is far outpacing what aid is available. The people here really are coming with nothing. They say they have nothing left that's precious to them save for their children, and their children, of course, are now at risk because of hunger. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Dolo.
A European fashion house, Balenciaga, is known for bold, sometimes controversial marketing choices, but a recent ad campaign has completely blown up in its face, with some accusing the label of sexualizing children. Eli Glasner shows us what that could cost.
After days of backlash against the fashion house, Balenciaga brand ambassador Kim Kardashian ended her silence on Twitter, saying, "As a mother of 4, I've been shaken by the disturbing images, and any attempts to normalize child abuse of any kind should have no place in our society." This is one of the images in question from a holiday campaign called Toy Stories, where children posed with teddy bears in bondage gear. The bears are actually bags that were featured in a recent Balenciaga runway show. Online reaction was swift and not surprising, says this fashion PR pro.
Clickbait campaigns are definitely part of a brand's overall marketing and sales strategy, and Balenciaga is known for employing this strategy with its products. But in this case, I think the brand failed miserably.
Last week, Balenciaga posted a short apology saying they take the matter seriously and are taking legal action.
Ultimately, the buck stops with the brand. This creative concept was flawed from the get-go. Children should always be off limits.
In response, the photographer, renowned for posing people with their belongings, issued a statement saying he was only asked to light the scene and take shots according to my signature style. On Twitter, Kim Kardashian also said she is reevaluating her relationship with the brand.
So her statement, I think it was walking a very thin line.
This crisis management expert says Kardashian is likely restricted in what she can say.
I think a lot of people were probably expecting her to come down a bit harder on them, but I think due to that, contract, she would be quite limited.
The fashion label has since scrubbed its Instagram, posting a new statement taking full responsibility, committing to learning from its mistakes and working to end child abuse. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau paid a visit to James Smith Cree Nation today, announcing millions of dollars in new funding for the Saskatchewan community where that deadly stabbing rampage took place.
We'll invest $40 million over 6 years to build a new wellness center here in the community and to repurpose the existing Saquatamo Lodge to address immediate needs. Today's announcement will enable James Smith Cree Nation to develop and design the programs that best serve the needs of its members.
The financial support is part of a total of more than $62 million Ottawa will make available over the next 6 years. It will go towards programs that include increasing access to mental health, trauma, and substance use services. Since the deadly mass stabbings of September 4th, there have been calls for more Indigenous-led policing. That's something the federal government has promised it plans to work on. An historic moment today for the Supreme Court of Canada as it welcomed its newest jurist, the first Indigenous justice to serve on Canada's highest bench. Olivia Stefanovic has more on the milestone appointment.
Since its inception, Canada's highest court has made landmark decisions about Indigenous rights, but never with an Indigenous perspective. Now that's changing as Justice Michelle O'Bonsawin takes her seat on the top bench. Introducing herself in her Algonquin language, Abenaki, before reflecting on breaking the glass ceiling.
I hope that my journey to this court will inspire young women to pursue their dreams. I am a big believer that if you have a goal, work hard, and never give up, you can make things happen and achieve those dreams.
A proud member of Odanak First Nation in Quebec, O'Bonsawin is also a fluently bilingual Franco-Ontarian. She grew up on the outskirts of Sudbury, Ontario, where her dad worked for the mining giant formerly known as Inco.
I have always gotten up and continued, at times with trepidation, but always moving forward.
O'Bonsawin began her legal career with the RCMP and taught Indigenous law at the University of Ottawa after collecting a wealth of academic achievements.
Michelle, you must be running out of degrees to take on.
The Chief Justice calls her appointment an important step towards reconciliation.
I hope your story of persisting in the face of doubt will encourage students listening to today's ceremony to follow their dreams.
Before joining the Supreme Court, O'Bonsawin was the first Indigenous judge named to the Ontario Superior Court of Justice in Ottawa.
I look forward to seeing the diverse perspectives you encapsulate as you enrich the decision-making process as you take on this role.
Known for her expertise in mental health, labor, and Indigenous law, O'Bonsawin replaces retired Justice Michael Moldaver to play a key role in the top court's modernization. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Lying dormant for some 35 years, a massive volcano on the island of Hawaii has come to life. The dangers below, next.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
The world's largest active volcano erupted overnight for the first time in nearly 40 years in Hawaii. Mauna Loa lit up the sky shortly before midnight last night local time, ending its longest recorded quiet period as it last erupted in 1984. Scientists say lava flows are contained and are not threatening any communities for now, though winds could carry trace amounts of volcanic gas and ash down the volcano.
We looked towards the end of the patio, which is where the mountain views are, and there was this just absolutely surreal orange glow above the mountain. And of course, at that time, we didn't know it was erupting, but I immediately thought, that looks like it's coming out of the top of Mauna Loa.
Mauna Loa rises more than 4,000 meters above the Pacific Ocean and is part of a chain of volcanoes that formed the islands of Hawaii. Time now to check in with Amy Bell for our weather. Amy, it's the big question tonight. Would you rather take lava in Hawaii or snow in Vancouver?
Ooh, tough call. I think I'll take whatever I can get in Hawaii, actually.
That's true. I'm on board with that.
I think so, especially knowing how we all react when it snows here in Vancouver. It's best to get out of Dodge. We are definitely just sort of awaiting. It's the calm before the proverbial storm. So what we are going to see is this system making its way to us. So it's going to be hitting Vancouver Island first. You'll start to see, well, you saw a few flurries today, in fact, but then eastern side of Vancouver Island does have winter storm warnings up. So it'll be quite snowy and windy throughout the day tomorrow, and then transitioning over to rain as we see this warmer system in behind. Right now, it's this precipitation meeting all of this air coming down, this outflow from the interior. So we're colliding with those cold temperatures and that moisture, and that's why we're predicting that we will see snow here by tomorrow. So we'll just have to time it out. We'll start to see a few flurries earlier in the afternoon, really ramps up though in the evening and overnight. So that afternoon, evening commute tomorrow could be especially dicey. I would recommend staying off the roads if you can. And then Wednesday, what we'll see happening is that temperature rising a little bit. So that precipitation will transition over to rain. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky because we could see freezing rain out in the Fraser Valley on Wednesday. But first things first, we have to focus on that snow that's making its way to us. As I mentioned, though, it will hit Vancouver Island first. So Comox, Nanaimo, Victoria, you'll see a bit of rain first and then transitioning into that snow. But yeah, seeing lots of snow up in Whistler. And as the day progresses, we'll see things cooling further and the snow developing for the Fraser Valley. Few flurries in Dease Lake and a high of -15, -12 in Prince George. Staying dry for Prince Rupert and gorgeous day in Cranbrook. Sunshine with just a high of -11. Over the next 5 days, we will see the snow on and off. So it'll head our way tomorrow. Holding temperature will be steady around 0. 5 with some showers by tomorrow or by Wednesday afternoon, dropping to 2 overnight. Thursday in the evening, we'll see that temperature dropping and we could head into more flurries. Definitely seeing snow in the forecast for Friday. And then Saturday, we'll see that snow transitioning to rain once again. So definitely in for a messy week.
No kidding. I imagine it's going to be quite slushy around the city.
It will be. Be careful.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
An unusual holiday display in Paris that has everyone talking and maybe getting a little itchy too. It's after the break.
Nothing wrong with the product, just a little bit rough, but it's not sellable for the store, but people can eat it. When I see this going to the garbage, it makes me sad.
We would have either sent the meat for compost or recycling, and in some cases it would be just discarded.
We have a few different ways that we would manage food, so it is one that we really recognize. Is there a better way to be able to get this food into the hands of those people who need it?
350 plus hampers a day that we're pushing out, so we're feeding thousands of Calgarians each week. If we can somehow keep food out of the compost and be able to rescue it and bring it to others that need food, fresh food, that's really important for us.
Every day we go and we look for best before dates, and we pull them and get them prepared for the food bank.
This is a program that started as a pilot in August of 2021. We started with 6 stores.
5 days a week, we rescue food that is no longer able to be sold for various reasons.
This is the product that we discarded today, and we freeze it for 24 hours prior to sending it to the food bank. This is product that we pulled yesterday morning that is all frozen solid and is ready to go to the food bank this morning.
We get it back to the food bank, quickly turn it around and get it into our food hampers so that people that are experiencing food insecurity get the freshest food possible.
After that pilot, we rolled it out to all 24 of our food stores since then. We also work with other partner food banks outside of our city as well for those stores outside of Calgary. And since that time, we've donated over 1 million pounds of food, which is a number we are really, really proud of.
There has definitely been an increase, especially in like dairy products, fresh produce. We get a lot of meat from them too, which is really, really helpful. A lot of bread, stuff like that. So we've been seeing these products kind of come in here a lot more consistently, which is really, really nice to see. Our numbers have been going up like crazy, and sometimes it's really hard to keep up. So having those extra donations to be able to still hand out a quality hamper for each client is really, really important.
It's not really much more work. It's just a matter of handling the meat differently after we pull it off the counter, but the workload is about the same actually. So it's really a win-win program for us and those less fortunate.
I feel 100% better. I'm from Jamaica and we don't waste nothing. We eat everything. So I'm glad to see that Co-op is doing something great for the city of Calgary.
There's a special class in Edmonton that's giving children with cerebral palsy the ability to express themselves through dance. The CBC's Emily Fitzpatrick has more on the initiative that's helping them to get involved.
9-year-old Malcolm Coles looks forward to his dance class all year.
He doesn't have to be different in this class. He's just a kid dancing.
Dance Without Limits lets its students do just that. Over 12 weeks, these young dancers learn to move and express themselves in any way they want. And all that hard work comes together with a final recital.
I think it's really important for disabled kids to get a chance to just feel joy in their bodies, and that's what he gets to do here. He gets to be a kid who loves to dance, and he's supported in the ways that his body needs to be supported.
The program is a partnership between Cerebral Palsy Alberta and Ballet Edmonton. Classes are led by a dance instructor and a physical therapist to ensure these students are in great hands.
And all of those children that are coming here today, they love dance. And here we are trying to provide for them adapted dance classes, but at the same time a lot of fun, but also a lot of physical activity.
Many are shy in the beginning, but each week their demeanor shifts as their self-confidence grows.
It's amazing to see the transformation. They don't see their differences or disabilities. They just know that they're in a dance class and they're enjoying movement. And you know, the music is a big part of it, and it enables the right brain to kind of help the left brain and some of that coordinative stuff come together.
The program is still small, offering just 2 courses, but the hope is it will expand to bring movement to as many special children as possible. Emily Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Edmonton.
And we end our show tonight with something I actually don't really want to think about. Now, it is the season, of course, for snowmen and for reindeer, but in Paris, apparently it's the season for bed bugs, too. Biodiversity is the theme this season at France's National Museum of Natural History. They're using low-consumption LED bulbs to create giant replicas of tiny organisms. And the idea is to highlight how essential they are to the world's ecosystem. The illuminated organisms are designed by a Chinese company that takes the principles of traditional lanterns to create light paths and immersive experiences. Visitors can check out everything from giant spiders to centipedes, although to save energy, the exhibit will be closed an hour earlier this year than in years past. Okay, I know it looks actually quite pretty for some, but even seeing that, I can't do it. I don't like photos of creepy crawly bugs. I don't like that at all. Perhaps the same for some of you. I won't be visiting that for sure. Okay, that is it for our CBC show tonight. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.